Hello, welcome to Assembly Update. I'm Mike Mann. My guest today is Assemblymember George Latimer, who represents the 91st Assembly District, Westchester County, and we're going to update you on some of the things that the Assemblyman has been working on during the summer recess. Assemblyman, good to see you. Thanks for being with us today.
Good to see you too, Michael. Thanks for having me.
I guess the first question I have to ask you is, at this time of year, I'm sure you're going to a lot of barbecues, a lot of local events in your Assembly District. What are some of the things that you hear from the people at this time of year when the legislature is not the top news story?
Well, I think the first thing is that there's a general unhappiness with government in general, and I think in specific with Washington and Albany. Maybe less of this do I hear on the local level of how people feel about their local community level of governments. I think some of it comes from the high-profile stories, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the gridlock in the state Senate. Obviously, the health care issue at the federal level is the overarching story as we speak right now, may well be for the next few weeks or months. And in almost every opportunity to talk about public policy, those of us as elected officials are portrayed as being, corrupt and stupid. And I say that not facetiously, because you get challenged at these things. At some of the community meetings I attend, someone will come up to you and say, Albany's a mess, and what are you doing about it, in a very angry and accusatory fashion. I try not to be angry in my response to that, because I understand that people have drawn a general judgment, and it's based on lots of things. The economy is a factor in that. When you read a news story about former colleagues who've gone off to jail for illegal activities, it creates an image. And it's not for me to counter-argue it, it's for me to try every day to show by what I do and what I say that I'm sincere about trying to represent people's interests. But the general vibe is not a good vibe right now, and I would say that it's all the more incumbent upon me and my colleagues to try to connect with people, talk to them in a very low-key, one-on-one fashion. We have the time now. Identify their needs, address them as best as we can, and work on legislation and funding issues that we think will help deal with some of those problems. Because you can't assert that you're doing a great job for people. You have to show them that you're doing the best you can. And that, I think, helps lessen some of the anger that's expressed in those casual moments.
Do most people group together legislators as a whole? So does the problems that happen in the Senate, I mean, you're feeling the same type of animosity also?
I think to be candid, I think people who are not involved in the political process, I mean, they may vote, but people who are not actively involved in the political process talk about politicians, you politicians, and they put everybody together. I think that the recent difficulties in the Senate were to some extent identifiable as those senators, but then, in general, it becomes Albany. And Albany, when you get home to a place that's not in this capital district area, means everybody involved. It means the governor, it means the assembly members, it means the senators, it means people whose names they don't know, but they collect it together. And then I also think you have to look at the role of newspapers, particularly the tabloid newspapers. When you live in Westchester County, you're reading New York City newspapers, and you have quite a different range between the New York Times and the New York Post in the way they portray these things. But again, I think I would be fooling myself or being dishonest if I said, well, people see that the Assembly met and we met on time and we completed our task. I don't think they really understood that. I think they saw the gridlock in the Senate, and the fact that bills that we've passed in one house did not get passed by both houses, did not get signed into law. And so as far as they're concerned, we didn't do our job as an aggregate. And so I think, there is a certain summer of our discontent out there, and I think we have to address it, every one of us. And I would say that extends to congressmen, state senators, county legislators, the whole bunch of us. I know most of my colleagues in government. I know the vast majority of them are decent people who want to do the right thing, but I think that's not necessarily the way that people are seeing us at this moment in time.
The healthcare issue on the national level, what do you hear from people about that? Do they go to their local legislator and voice their concerns about things that are happening on a national level?
Well, in general, I think it falls into two categories. I think what you're seeing right now is the cutting edge of people who are the most vocal, who do not want to see government's role in healthcare at all. Many of these people who philosophically, are not happy with any expansion in government. Many of them were unhappy with the TARP program for the banks. They weren't happy with the bailout of the automotive companies, and they view all of this as unwarranted government intrusion. I'm not sure that any change to the health care proposal as it stands now would satisfy that section of people. I think most of those folks, as philosophical conservatives, probably don't vote for many Democrats anyway, but I think they have a legitimate voice. The other portion, I think, of the community are people who range from support to the health care plan in specific or in concept to people who want to know more and have questions answered. And I think that's the majority of it. And I think they're looking at a bill like any piece of legislation that's still in transit. So while on one side of the coin there are people who don't want to see anything done, I think there's a larger group of people that want to see something done, but they want it to be defensible. They want it to be affordable. They want to understand how it affects their lives. And all that's very legitimate. And that's what's happening in Washington right now. There is the debating process. There is the modification process. It wasn't done for the summer. It's going to go into the fall, and that process is going to expand. I do think, you have a moment in time in America where people have fallen, you call blue state, red state, or, blue community, red community. There's a very strong philosophical gap between how people look at the role of government in the society. And that's been reflective in the last 4 or 5 presidential elections. And I think that overlay exists when you're talking about an issue like healthcare. You're looking at it with a philosophy, and your philosophy is I don't want government involved, or I see government as an honest broker and being involved to try to correct some of the problems that exist today in the private market.